Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Cemetery Files on Studio 6 Productions. This,
Woohoo!
I am your host, Jay Hill, with my other host.
Kelly Schaefer!
Yay!
Yay!
So, today we are starting a little bit early, but that's okay.
Yeah.
So, I wanted to say you can find us all on Facebook on Parapost Network, also Parallax Network. You can also find us on YouTube and our Studio 6 production page, as well as hearing us on all video or on all audio platforms. So wherever you get your podcast, you can find us there. This show will be uploaded after the show is over, and then everybody will be happy. Yay!
Yay!
So like I said, we started a little early. We just wanted to. We were so excited for today because our special guest today is Barry Fitzgerald. And for anybody that doesn't know who Barry Fitzgerald is, he was
I do.
He was on GHI, Ghost Hunters International.
Yep.
As well as the original Ghost Hunters. He's very knowledgeable. He's had quite a bit of stuff going on in the past. He's a great researcher. He's so fun to talk to, and why not just invite the guy?
Yeah.
So here he is.
You never know until you say it. Hey,
Right,
there
Barry.
he is.
Jay, Kelly, how are you both?
Doing well, thank you.
We're doing well. Yeah,
Good.
it's great to have you on actually talking to me again, because we had that show with Josh not too long ago, last year, I think it was.
That's right. Yeah.
That was fun. Yeah, and the knowledge that you were talking about with the folklore was enthralling in itself. So, and Josh just came back from Ireland, actually.
Good for him. He survived.
Yeah, he did. He did. He said he was going to try to get a hold of you, but he said that he was just so busy with this documentary, and yeah, it was just. And I'm anxious to hear what he's going to put together. So yeah, and Ireland itself is, a dream of mine to go to, and you live there. So
I do. Yes. For being so blessed, I live in the West Coast and enjoy all those rampant storms that rise off the Atlantic Ocean.
Yeah, Kelly's been dealing with that in where she lives.
Tennessee. I'm in Tennessee.
Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah.
So
I'm now dealing with brownouts because the wires are loose.
Oh yeah, we don't want that. We like you to stay where you're at.
Yeah.
So Barry, tell us, how have things been since the last time we talked?
It's been good. It's been exceptionally busy.
Yeah.
Because we've had a short summer this year, because up until recently we've had nothing but wet, rain and dismal weather. And add that to the storms, and that can be problematic when you're trying to sail across quite a large lake to make your way to a small island where all this phenomena is occurring. So we have to try and find those windows. And just recently we got a bit of a heat spell, and we were blessed, and that allowed me to travel to this island in particular, out in County Roscommon. And on this island is a beautiful little castle, but its orientation always, I always could see the orientation of the castle meant much more than what we would initially look at and think, oh, that's a pleasant castle. But the way the castle was designed, it seems pretty obvious that this castle was designed to really capture the setting sun on the solstice. On the summer solstice, and also the rising sun of the winter solstice.
Wow.
And
nice.
Not only do we have all this phenomena going on around the castle, and I should say, looking at the manuscripts from 1132, they mention ghosts on the island. So even back then, there have been associations. But recently, I got to interview a couple of folks who were there December, I think it was October 2 years ago, and they were attacked in their rowing boat by these two large creatures that seemed to rise from the depth. which in themselves I would identify as the ancient gods.
Oh
These
Oh
wow.
wow.
large, exceptionally huge serpents that attacked the boat. And the interviewee said, he spoke to me and said that this was a life and death situation.
Oh my.
Both of them thought that it was the end for them. And December that year, then there was also this huge UFO that was filmed over the back of this particular location. So it seems to have everything going on. It's like the Irish Skinwalker Ranch, but
Oh my.
much better.
Oh wow. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
That's
So
awesome.
being in that part, is that someplace that you've been to frequently, or is it just something that you? I mean, have you been there
Ireland is
before?
not big. Ireland
Okay.
Ireland can fit in the state of Maine.
Right.
And
Yeah.
Oh.
I am 5 minutes from the mountains and 5 minutes from the ocean. And from that particular island that I was speaking about there,
Uh-huh.
I'm 30 minutes away from it.
Oh, jeez.
And having the luxury of having my own boat,
Right.
I make the most of it.
Right. Right. Would you like be afraid that since you've heard that story, you interviewed those people, would you be afraid to actually travel on your boat in that?
Oh hell no!
No.
Oh no, absolutely
No.
not.
No. Yeah.
That's what I
So
do.
right. Right. So so growing up, I mean, I'm sure that you probably your family, you've probably heard a lot of different folklores and a lot of
Mm.
different things in from Ireland and even the surrounding areas. Was there one thing in particular that really stuck with you when you heard these stories when you were a kid? Was there one thing
Oh my
specific?
God, yes. I
Okay.
have to say that it was being taken to the cinema by my father,
Oh,
and I thought it was a great idea to sit down and watch Darby O'Gill and the Little People,
okay.
by Walt Disney.
Oh,
And during this movie, all of a sudden the Banshee appeared on screen,
oh.
terrified the bejesus out of me. I must have been about 4 years of age, and I can
Yeah.
remember distinctly climbing off my seat and getting down in between the seats to peer out between the two cracks of the chair to see if the
Right,
Banshee was
right.
still on the screen. But I've had my encounters with the Banshee, and to see this element of our folklore, and see the realism to it
Hmm.
when I finally got off my ass and went into the countryside to talk to people,
Yeah.
and interview them, for a book that I wrote to the Banshee, and it was about modern interactions with this phenomena. Does it still happen? Is this something that disappeared when Ireland got the electric light in the
Mhm.
1950s?
Hmm.
And
Right.
I have to say, no, she has not disappeared. And if anything, she is appearing even in our cities.
Oh,
Wow.
wow.
And I interviewed a guy who lives in this huge Georgian house, in Dublin, in the centre of Dublin, and they have long extended gardens at the back. And he was out hanging up his washing, and one little tiny bulb, in the backlight, to cast its heart's glory down this garden the best it could.
Yeah.
And he seen movement as he was hanging up the clothes on the line, and he seen movement in the further down in the garden, and he stood and watched, and it was her.
Oh,
Oh
wow.
And
wow.
this is something it's been instilled in us. You should never spy on this phenomenon.
Yeah.
Right.
And
Right,
that's
right.
exactly what he was doing.
Oh, wow.
And she reacted to the fact that she was being watched. And he's still going through therapy. It was a very, very intense thing. And I have to say, I got to experience, from writing the book, I got to experience the cry of the Banshee. And in its own right, I've come to, in my own way, appreciate and understand this being and where it comes from. And in fact, when I was putting pen to paper, and to hear the call of this Banshee, again, terrified me when I got to hear it. But it was like her approval.
Hmm.
Okay, you can write this, but also I understood and felt the message within the screen, because it
Wow.
wasn't just a case of of people saying, "Oh well, it's a hare. It's a hare in the garden, or it's a fox that's caught in a trap, or something like that, or maybe even some lady down the street has had too much whiskey to drink, and she's having a bit of a laugh, or whatever the case may be." This is not the case. The scream itself is exceptionally defined, and when the scream hits you, it comes with a vibration that kickstarts your fight or flight.
Mm.
There is an importance within the scream. Suddenly, your body reacts with a tremendous amount of fear, and you realize there's something more to this. Listen, death
Mhm.
is coming,
Oh wow.
and that's her message.
Yeah.
She's letting the people know death is coming. Prepare.
Now, do you fear her like that? I mean, are you like afraid that something's going to happen to you or someone of your loved ones, or?
No, I don't, because I do have a type of understanding of the phenomena,
Mhm.
and also within the name Banshee, it's been anglicized, from the Irish, but she in itself, in the end of her name, refers to, in the modern tech, refers to the fairy.
Mhm.
So it would be, in a modern tech, it would be, the name would simply mean Banshee, woman of the fairy.
Mm.
But that's not a true translation.
Right.
That's a romanticized translation, because she also referred to the Neolithic passage chambers that dots across Ireland. Now, these chambers were built before the Great Pyramids of Giza,
Oh
and
wow.
they are across our landscape, especially in the West, where I live. And it means woman of the mounds,
Mm.
people of the mounds. These entities are coming through the stone
Oh
onto
wow.
our landscapes. And it's interesting, whenever I've been following David Paulides' work in the United States, and he has wrote some wonderful material, Missing 411, about people who go missing in state parks and things like that.
I've been following him.
He is wonderful in what he has
Hmm.
done. But interesting that he said the majority of people disappear in boulder fields.
Yep.
We're back to rocks.
Yep.
And a lot of the shining ones who appear, who are also associated with the she,
Hmm.
also appear on rock strata,
Mm.
in cave systems, cliff edges, about the rocks. What is it about the rocks? And that's where my research has taken me. It's forcing me to readjust, and look and examine these rocks, and about what is happening at these specific times that's
Mhm.
allowing this phenomena to come through, and more so, what is happening to some of the people that view it.
Right.
So
Right.
just in a layman's terms, when you said rocks coming through the rocks, the first thing I thought was Outlander, where they travel through time using the standing stones.
Mm-hmm,
Yeah.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Is that kind of
Well,
is that
no,
kind of along the same lines of where they're traveling from, or?
I don't believe. No, I don't believe it's a time, thing. Though we have, I have to say, in countenance to that, there was one location, which was, an ancient doorway to this other place,
Mhm.
where we tended to find these were places that people came from all over Europe to come to these places, because it was a place of oracle.
Hmm.
Mhm.
It was a place that you came to get the message from these gatekeepers, and the gatekeepers were the giant serpents. So we tend to find this idea, this aspect of the gateway to the darkness is guarded by the giant serpent. But
Mhm.
this is also a place like the Oracle of Delphi and things like that, where you had this female aspect associated with it, in which the message was being relayed. And I had an experience at one of these places, and it scared, I have to say, beyond anything else that I have seen and done. This place terrified me beyond anything.
Really.
And
Oh.
but setting that aside, when I went back, I initially 10 years ago I said I'm never going back to that place. That's be done.
Mhm.
But we did end up going back, and I brought some equipment with me. And one piece of equipment was time displacement um, uh, uh, um, meter. And for the first time over the event horizon of this stone mound, we got to see a displacement in time.
Oh
Oh,
wow.
nice.
And these places that we tend to go to tend to be remote. They're hard to reach, and that was always the way for these old gods, these places of old. They were up in the hills. They were in the forest somewhere where you had to. It was a very very hard place to reach. And what we tended to see is that the more that humanity expanded into these areas, the more they retreated back.
Well, it's a lot like
Uh,
wildlife. I mean,
yes,
when you expand into a
exactly. Yeah,
wildlife
yeah.
area, they
Uh-huh,
go back.
uh-huh,
Mhm.
uh-huh.
There's so many things about this world that we just don't recognize and understand
Yeah.
right off the
Yeah,
bat.
I hear a lot of folks saying, "Oh, well, the people back 2,000 years ago, they were totally ignorant.
Oh, I
You know,
don't think
they
so at
couldn't survive
all.
here." But the thing is, I would argue against that, and I said, no, they had their own strengths
Hmm.
Hmm.
because we don't know how to build a pyramid,
Nope.
the way that they did. The alignments and everything else that was going on would severely challenge us today.
They
Now,
were still trying
granted,
to figure out today.
yeah,
Yeah.
and granted, they wouldn't understand an electric kettle.
No.
But those are our strengths, and our ancestors had their strengths, and we need
Hmm.
to recognize each because
Right.
a lot of folks will say to me, "Oh, well, those old stories, and is there such a thing as ghosts and spirits and all the rest?" They left us multiple lifetimes of information
Hmm.
inscribed on paper and clay tablets and everything else. All the information's there,
Hmm.
Hmm.
but we need to go back and look at it. We need to
Right.
Yeah.
relearn what we
We need
have
Right.
to look at
forgotten
it
because
without,
we
we
are
need,
we are a civilization that suffer amnesia.
hmm
We're
Yeah.
forgetting all the time,
hmm
Yeah.
and that I think can be a problem.
yeah, we need
Hmm.
to look at it without intention of what we want to find in it.
Yes.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you spoke a little bit about like the Giza, the pyramids and stuff like that. Do you think that that has any correlation together with like when you were talking about the mounds and all that? Do you think that some of those spiritual places are connected to some at some point,
Um,
or do you think that they are their own entities, basically, in layman's terms,
well,
basically?
once looking at whenever I went to Estonia in northern Europe, there was an island off the coast of Estonia in which these mounds had appeared,
Hmm.
and people that lived on this island were known to again have a serpentine connection and also worship at the mounds. It was seen as a death cult type of thing,
Hmm.
and before the church came along and rectified their ways,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
and so that was still going on in northern Estonia. But it was interesting to note that the orientation of the mounds, some were slightly different than the rest, and it was believed that those went to a different place.
Oh.
Mm.
So, and each one was activated at a specific time. It's the mound itself is almost like a huge timepiece.
Hmm.
Wow.
And looking at even the mounds that we have here, on the solstice, what we tend to see is that when the sun hits a certain level in the sky, just before it dips beyond the horizon, um, the atmosphere naturally filters the light from the sun, and you get this purity of light that enters the chamber. And we have some of the oldest depictions of a Celtic cross, which in itself is a floor plan of one of these chambers. The secrets were never lost; they've always been hidden in front of us. And what we tend to see within this 8th century wall carving is this design of the passage chamber with a person, if we put it on a clock face, at 3 and 6, with
Hmm.
their mouths open, they're producing vibration. The chant is being produced, and it's not just a chant from here. It's like a Mongolian chest chant. It's a very deep, trancy chant that's being produced, and at the top of the 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 cross piece, you have the oracle, and at the bottom you have a person crawling in who is being consumed by a spiraling serpent. So these were timepieces, and these doorways were opened at specific times. They just weren't something that you can say, I've had a little whiskey here. Now I'm heading up to the mountain to have a chat with my serpent friend. That doesn't happen. These were timepieces. There were specific times when these doorways were activated, and that is very, very apparent in their designs. And the Princeton University came across from the United States, and they'd done acoustical checks on a lot of the chambers here in Ireland, and the majority of them were all tuned to 110 hertz.
Oh, wow.
How did they do that?
Yeah.
How did they build that back then? But obviously there was some type of connection that was made with these things beyond where the knowledge was kept. Because let's face it, serpent is also connected with knowledge. We see that throughout history. And we've got these gatekeepers who give over the knowledge, but it comes at a price.
Okay. So
and that's
do you
something
think
that's
now, do you think that talking about the history and that old saying of history is doomed to repeat itself, do you think in some aspect of the spiritual realm, and especially when we're talking about those different places you just spoke of, do you think that some of that history or some of that spiritual energy repeats itself?
Absolutely, and in fact, it's still being utilized today. We
Okay.
can see within even some labs that are being sponsored, that tests are being continued. That there was experiments that were done in school on the eastern coast of England. I think from 95 to 98, around that time period, and these were seance experiments, and they met twice a week in the basement of this house, and it got to a stage, it became that famous that scientists were lining up at the door wanting in to experience this. And the phenomena was appearing, and it was a multitude of varying different phenomena, including arms that would materialize, touch the sitters, and the sitters would feel the cold hand on their arm. They would feel the hand and continue up the arm until they got to the elbow, and then there was nothing after the elbow.
Oh my gosh.
So, rule number one, materialization can happen. It doesn't matter
Right.
what form. So
Right.
there we have the first bit. They can materialize whatever they want. And also there was something else which spoke volumes to me, because they had this camera system that was set up and it was recording. And during the recording, there was a face that appeared in the recording, and it was a gray alien.
Really?
What is a gray alien doing in a seance room?
Right.
And so this was continuing as well. Small UFOs, this size, were appearing and flying, zooming around the table, producing this little light onto the table, and all this was all being observed by the sitters over the 5-year period. The huge amount of experiences that they had was very well documented by one of the sitters. Every day, every sitting was well documented. And I have a copy of the diary here and was able to go through it. But disturbingly, what annoyed me more than anything is that although everything started off well at the beginning, contradictions started coming in. And eventually severe contradictions were coming in. And that, to me, that's when my alarm bells go off. Hold on a second, they're being deceived. And that was problematic. Now, these people had to meet in darkness or very, very little light. And yet 20 years before, in the Livermore laboratories in the United States, during daylight, the same experiments were being done and the same phenomena was being reported. And in fact, there were strange creatures that were being reported appearing in the bedrooms of the scientists who were involved. Now, this was happening in daylight, which again was another contradiction that annoyed me. That,
Right.
well, why does one person have to do it in darkness and the other one can do it in light? Again,
Right.
the deception was very, very high. And the more I began to push into this to see, well, okay, if science is doing it, where else are we finding this? And there was a paper that I have somewhere here on my desktop, that I managed to get my hands on, and it describes the Douglas Aeronautics Company, who were using company money to try and make contact with aliens
Mhm.
to get advancements in engine design for the aeronautics company through a Ouija board.
Jeez.
So, the paper is there in black and white.
Right.
That big industry is also trying to reach this phenomena. The problem is that they're not seeing the deception within it. Because
Right.
when I went through the paperwork and was looking at what was coming through, I had this red mark and I was going, I was seeing all of that particular pattern of deception playing out again in front of them, and they missed it.
Right. So why would you think that you caught all this deception and you saw all these red flags? You know, what would be the reason to actually cause that? I mean, if they're actually trying to do something where they're trying to do this test and do this, and but what is the goal? Just is it just to decept, just trick people, or to I'm just kind of at a loss that these people, even some paranormal teams, they want the views and this and that, and they fake their evidence or they do this. It's like that's like an entity on its own. You know what I mean? I mean, that's just kind of like a spiritual entity that just wants to infect other people. You know, just it's like ego. You know what I mean? So
Well, it's interesting that you bring that term up, ego, because that's where this phenomena is able to break through using to reach us is through ego,
right, right,
and that can be problematic. We talk of attachments and things like that, and oppression,
hmm
and this is all part of the phenomena as a
right,
whole, as a greater whole.
hmm
It's exceptionally animalistic, and it's part of a base root instinct. It can form our wants, our desires, our needs, and when it has made this attachment, an external attachment, that can become very, very traumatic for the individual, because there are certain patterns which unfold, which affect us on a biological level. And that's something that I touched on in one of my other publications about a decade ago, called The Influence, which looks at how this particular phenomena does attach,
hmm
and what it does to us on a biological level. To understand that, to not only to watch out for it, but how we can turn it back,
right,
and get back some type of control. Unfortunately, when it has gone too far, it creates it can create a type of symbiotic relationship
hmm
that is almost impossible to break.
hmm
So when we have someone coming in saying, "I need help. I've got this thing attached to me. How long have you had it?" And, well, I've had it for maybe 5 years. Um, because they haven't broke the connection, this attachment, then if we come in and we decide, okay, we'll try and help you release this, within a week to 2 weeks, it's back
hmm
because of the symbiosis.
Hmm.
hmm
And the same goes for people who own properties, that are haunted. If time has elapsed too much, it can create this symbiotic relationship.
right,
And it doesn't matter who you bring in. You could bring in the Pope if you want.
hmm
After a period, it's going to come back,
Yep.
because the attachment was not
hmm
dealt with
right,
initially.
Hmm.
right. So, and it seems to be like the paranormal field as a whole could probably use a couple dozen therapists. I mean, just because I mean, seriously, I mean, just because the fact that when you talk about attachments and you talk about the symbolism of all that, there's so many different people in the paranormal field because it's been growing for a long time now, But it's like, 20, 30 years ago, we wouldn't really be having this conversation too much. I
No.
mean, it would be, something changed and something shifted. And so, speaking spiritually, in your personal opinion, do you think that that there's been a spiritual shift on the planet, or even in just in anywhere in general?
It's interesting when we go back and we look at that question through the eyes of our ancestors. When we reached a specific point in our time where we had enough,
Hmm.
in which we had some free time to then look at our spiritual makeup, at what lies beyond. We start making contact, we start reaching out, and we find this phenomena behind the veil ready to step forward,
Hmm.
to say, I'm your great uncle Derek or whatever,
Hmm.
Auntie Betty, and we'll give you three lies and one truth. And it's a strange thing that within humanity, we will ignore the three lies and concentrate on the one truth. Oh, well,
Right.
it's telling me the truth then. I got that right. That one point. And I can assure you, if it's lied to you once, it will lie to you again and again and again. But this aspect of having free time to look into this other aspect of life, is where I think some of the problems lie, because now more than any other time in humanity's history, we have more free time. And it's interesting that when we start
True.
to realize that, wait a minute, something isn't quite right, and we start, suddenly the light bulb goes off in our brain. Wait a
Hmm.
minute, I don't think this is what it is.
Hmm.
When enough of us reach that particular point, throughout history, we can see we come to a point in which we go through a reset.
Hmm.
And it's interesting that that word is something which is being thrown around over the past 3 years. We're going to go through a reset.
Yeah, I've heard that
Well,
quite a
that
bit.
never worked well for us in
Yeah.
the past.
Yeah.
It's been across
Um,
several different
Yeah.
cultures.
yeah, in which, and that in itself, pushes us back into a situation in which suddenly our free time's gone. There's
Hmm.
a different focus in our lives,
Hmm.
along with a whole host of other things that occur, which is never good. But it's interesting to see that, and now I think, yes, we are seeing this huge breach
Hmm.
occur, and the floodgates have opened. I think spiritually onto this vein of existence,
Hmm.
and I think, yeah, we are in trouble.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we have been for a little bit now. But so let's shift gears a little bit and tell us a little bit about what you've been up to lately. I mean, are you have anything working on a new project?
Yeah, I was working with archaeologists last year, filming on that specific island where we began the show on, and I was filming what they were digging, because to me it was of great interest, the fact that they were looking at a medieval period, and I was saying, no, no, I understand the
Oh,
medieval
earlier.
aspect to it, but I think it goes much further
Further.
back in
Yeah.
history,
Hmm.
and I'm pushing for the Bronze Age,
Hmm.
because that would tie in with why this island has been obsessed over, why so much blood has been spilled for this place, why so many people died on it. Like the castle itself, one of the castles was struck by lightning, and before that, the island was struck again, and over 300 people had died on the island.
Oh wow.
And it's small; it's not even
Right.
an acre,
Oh
and
wow.
it has attracted so much attention, and not good attention. So
Hmm.
there has to be something here. I've had a remote viewer also come on board, and he's been very, 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 very interesting in what he has pulled from the place. Has no idea where the hell it is or anything like that.
Hmm.
But the information that he has brought forward has tick, 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 tick.
Yeah.
When we finally get to the history books and start filtering down through,
Right.
so it's quite a remarkable place. So I'm working on that. I'm wanting to put a documentary together, a 6-part documentary, and hopefully we can secure the funding for that. The archaeologists are now back on the island. They're working over the course of the month, and hopefully we might meet or know something more about that time period we're aiming for.
Wow, that sounds like that. I would really want to see that documentary.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, just the history aspect of it alone, and just to know. Part of it is a lot of people, who investigate or who do the paranormal or whatever. They want the immediate, I'm, searching or hunting ghosts or whatever, which I don't like hunting. I hate that phrase. But it's just like they want to do this for the now, but if you actually look back into the future of all these places, or even the locations that you go to, you find and uncover so much more information that could actually make your investigation that much more plausible of what you're doing and what you're trying. Some people, I think, they're kind of missing the part of the whole history of it. When me and Kelly talk about being in an investigation or doing an investigation or something, that's the focus. Is we start with the history, the aspect of it, and then kind of build on that, because we
But
like
I
to
don't
go.
tell you.
Yeah, she doesn't tell me nothing. I have to kind of with my abilities, I have to come up with that, and she has to verify it, and which to me, I think is a great way to experience it. And I'm not saying that I would get everything right, because I do believe that all mediums are not the same. So I mean, we might experiencing certain things differently, but the history aspect, and when you talk about the island and all of that, and what's the Bronze Era, and it's just like I have not ever heard of anybody talk about you know a piece of land or like something like that in that aspect, kind of tied with like the paranormal or anything like that. So having said that's going to be an interesting documentary, and I certainly hope that you get the funding, and so if there's anything I could do to help promote it or do whatever, just gotta let me know, because
Well, thank
that's
you.
something
Thank you
that I
very
would
much.
love to be able to eventually see, and I know that a lot of my friends would probably be do the same thing. But
Well,
yeah,
I do know that I can give you a little inside information,
okay,
in that on one of the last days of the dig last year, something was uncovered.
okay.
It was filmed and it was uncovered. The timing was remarkable because I was so upset. I says, "Oh no, we're not going to get past this medieval bloody period." And suddenly, rising from the dirt came this piece that
Wow.
points directly at the Bronze Age.
Oh wow,
Nice.
yeah, all right. So
Nice.
there's a reason, and not everything's not so much of a science, but it's timing. If you're
Yes.
patient and you have the time to do it, and
Hmm.
you put in the work and the dedication, yeah, things will come up. And
Hmm.
just like you
Hmm.
said,
Hmm.
out of the dirt, that's what you were looking for. And that's
Well, it's strange when we consider everything that seems to be going on around this particular island, and the great Irish poet, may he rest in peace, W.B. Yeats. He came to the island and he was a member of the Golden Dawn, an esoteric occult group that was spread across the British Isles and also into Europe. And they came to the island and they wanted the castle. Now, no one lived in the castle at that particular time, but it seemed important enough that he was to bring the person who was to become the first Irish president who would argue the case for the Golden Dawn.
oh,
Why did the Golden Dawn want that place? The Golden Dawn usually went after places where there were doorways.
hmm
And when we consider the old gods that we're seeing, the UFOs that are seen, the paranormal things that are going on within the vicinity, there may be some credence here to support the idea of a doorway to another place.
Right.
hmm hmm
Right.
yeah, somebody might know. You know,
Mhm.
yeah, yeah, like I said, that sounds like a fascinating story and documentary in itself. So, so
Can't wait.
have you got something else besides that, or are you focusing more of your energy on that, or have you done anything more recent?
Yeah, I'm writing a book. I'm in the middle of writing a book, and it in itself is looking at the book that I released last March was called The Deceptions of Gods and Men.
Mhm.
That looked at this aspect and nature of the phenomena that was coming through
Hmm.
the veil. This next book looks at what it is
Oh,
and where it comes from. So this changes everything on its head. But I have to say, I have been getting my ass give to me on a
handed to you.
platter over the past year, and it has been very, very intense. In fact, to
Right.
the point where last Christmas I thought I can't go anymore with this because we are being absolutely ruined.
Right.
And so it's been a tough slog
Right.
to get to this point. And it really went pear shaped when the discovery was made where this is coming from. The moment
Mhm.
that was established, boom! It was like a bomb went off in the house,
Right. Right.
and so that has been problematic. I'm still working on it, and I still want to finish the book, but of
Hmm.
course there's this in the back of my head: finish it, but don't release it.
Right.
And uh,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I'm working with that too. So we'll see. We'll see. To be
Right.
to be
Right.
determined.
Right. So, are you planning any trips to U.S. anytime soon?
Well, there is talk that I may be out in Los Angeles, in mid-September, in
Okay.
Hollywood, but that's all I can say on that matter. Um,
Of
and
course.
there's also a mention that I'll be in the US in March next year at an event. Most of my time now is heading across east, and I'll be in England at the Awakenings event in Manchester in the end of August. Huge event with all big
Yeah.
names there. So
Right.
I'll be lecturing there as well, and I'm looking
Oh.
forward to meeting a lot of people there.
Right. Right. Yeah. Some of the paracons that are popping up all over the place, especially like in the summertime and even in the fall here in the
Hmm.
U.S. It's just we are be lucky to go to a couple, and me and Kelly are speaking at one, and it's just the paracons and getting people together is important, especially if you're into this field and
Yes.
you kind of and group all these people together with new ideas and then new
Hmm.
friendships and
Hmm.
everything. So I think
Hmm.
that those are great. Um, you talked a little bit about that event that you're going to be speaking at. Is there some place in London or anywhere around there that you haven't investigated that you would love to investigate?
Oh, well, there's always places that I would like to go to. There is one up in Scotland, um, and it's called the. There's this apparition said to appear, and it's called the Grey Man of Bendui. I think that's the way it's pronounced.
Oh,
This mountaintop in which this grey figure is said to scare the people off the mountain, who are sleeping in this little shepherd's hut.
mhm.
But science, of course, looked at it, and science sitting in their laboratory, never actually being on the top of the
You're
mountain,
right.
come up with the solution that obviously it's the person's shadow that's being cast in the low sun, and over the low cloud, you're seeing this huge shadow. And excuse this, but if you're an idiot that falls for your own shadow, well, then you really shouldn't be on the mountain.
You really should be on the
Yeah,
mountain.
Yeah,
right. Is that kind of
but
like the Groundhog Day? You know?
yeah. But I've spoken to people who have encountered this phenomenon on the mountain, and one in particular talked about how this thing grabbed the backpack and ripped it off his back.
Oh
Oh
wow.
my.
Your shadow doesn't do that.
No.
No.
Scientist.
No.
No, if it
So
does, you've got bigger problems.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah.
So
So
that's things that I'm very, very curious about, and heading up as well up into the Orkney Islands in Scotland, right on the northern coast there. That's something I want to do as well. And then
Oh,
there's loads of things here in Ireland I also want to get and have a look at, but it's just getting the time. Time seems to
right,
be
right.
rushing on, and You know, you're no time till you're through the next month, and you're thinking, where the hell did that go?
Right.
So let's go back to the conversation of free time. No. Where'd that free time go? No, so I should be the one that has a mute button for Jay every now and then, so that I can get my questions in. But I think he put me on mute so that I wouldn't, like gush all over the place. I've got to say that when I was watching you on Ghost Hunters International,
Yes. I knew this was coming.
Okay,
was
but
it the,
I do
was
have a
it
real
the accent?
Yeah.
No. It was your knowledge of the locations, your knowledge of the paranormal. It was everything except that. I mean, I get over the accent real quick. It's really cool though, but I get over the accent real quick.
Thank you. I take it everywhere.
Right.
Because the accent can go away, the intelligence doesn't.
Yeah. Right.
But I do have a question.
Sure.
What was the event that you would classify as changing your life?
I would have to say it would have been my interaction on the Island of the Dead. That was a place that we had heard the stories, and like many stories of mythology and folklore, you tend to take it with a pinch of salt. You go, oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So off we went. We were completely unprepared, and when we arrived on this particular island, we were handed our asses.
Oh wow!
And that was so powerful that it lifted me off the paradigm, the railway tracks of my own paradigm, and set me on a new course.
Mm-hmm.
And that opened up everything else to where I'm working now. And it did scare me. It really did scare me, and I says I don't want to encounter that again. And but after the decade now, I can look back and I can see, well, actually that needed to happen, because if I continued where I was going, I was just going to end up going in circles.
Right.
So I understand it a little bit better. I would have accepted an email, or even a post-it. But I had to go through it. I had to go through the fear personally.
I'm going to steal that one. I would have accepted an email. That's perfect.
Right.
That's awesome.
Yeah, keep going, Kelly. I'm going to let you take the floors.
Oh, Lord Almighty. I didn't have a whole list of questions. So
I know. I'm just putting you on spot.
Thank God. Yeah, I'm not the one that talks a lot. I really am not. I'm the historian. I'm the researcher.
Very good. Very good.
I'm the pretty face on the camera. There you go.
Wow. Oh, see how this goes, Barry? Yeah. We have fun on this show, so
we do. So you've got a big night planned for you tonight. We hear.
What's that?
You have a big night planned for tonight.
I'm meant to. I'm meant to be out of here by 7 a.m. and I'm looking at the window as there's just sheets of rain coming in the window, and I'm thinking I'm meant to be in a rowboat at 7:30.
Wear your wetties.
Yeah. I don't know if I could actually do that. I mean, I do not like rainy weather, cloudy weather. I'm all about sunshine and hot weather, and thunderstorms are nice, but yeah, gloomy days like that, I don't know.
Did you say you wanted to come to Ireland?
Yeah. Believe me. Yeah, no, yeah. Me and my wife
looking at
would love
Scotland,
to be,
actually.
Yeah, both Scotland and Ireland. Yeah, both me and my wife would love to, but yeah, I kind of have a problem getting across the water. I don't know. I have a irrational fear of flying over the ocean. I don't know why, but I just.
Well, drowning is a good fear to have. But fear not, because you get a little whistle. And that's...
By the time your plane reaches the ground or reaches the ocean, you're probably going to be gone anyway. So it's an irrational fear in my book.
So somebody had a question for you, Barry. I wanted to post it real quick.
Mm-hmm.
How can you tell when an investigator is legit?
They don't tell lies.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there is that.
yeah,
It is very difficult. You know, you have to speak to the investigator. Go with your gut.
right.
Your instinct is very, very important and shouldn't be ignored. If it doesn't feel right, then
Mhm.
you can be sure it
It's not
probably
right.
isn't. Yeah.
Right, right,
Hmm.
right. Yeah, your intuition is kind of pretty much always been a ground base of operations for me. You know,
Yeah, yeah,
if
absolutely.
yeah, if I don't feel it, then I'm not doing it. You know what I mean? It's
Mhm.
kind of yeah. I just
No, there is situations today in which that gift of discernment can be interrupted,
mhm,
and that is something maybe we should touch on now. Now that it's here,
right.
um, that our gift of discernment, it's a very soft. If you wish to place it in a perspective of a voice, it's a very soft voice.
Mhm,
But it also comes with a series of biological responses that we can identify, and we can hone in on those. But if we're going out and we have refined sugar, if we consume refined sugar in whatever format, that can shut down your gift of discernment. So if, for instance, we meet up at some fast food restaurant and we have a jar of soda drink, that has the potential of shutting down the best piece of equipment that you have, which is you.
Mhm.
mhm,
You're blinding your own sense,
Mhm.
and you're moving into a situation in which it could be potentially a threatening situation. You don't want to be bringing things home unnecessarily,
Mhm.
um, and to have that biological response to initiate when you walk into a particular building and suddenly the hair goes up in the back of your neck and you go, oh, there is another one here.
mhm,
And you know, to have that shut down, I think is disastrous. So understanding the way our bodies respond to what we eat and drink is something which is vitally important. And also, if we go back and we look at the likes of the Semitic incubus and succubus attacks, which in itself is nothing more than a mask, and we look at the other phenomena, such as the jinn, the fairy, the
mhm,
greys, right into the modern ufology holdings there. All this phenomena is all responding or can respond to the stimulus of iron. In other words, iron will stop a physical manifestation attacking the person.
really?
Iron, yeah.
Holy cow!
And
Iron's very powerful. It's been powerful in.
incubus, yeah, incubus and
I.
succubus attacks will attack women more than men.
Mhm.
And we say incubus and succubus, they're all the same thing. It's
They're
all
all the
one.
same thing.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
They
They're all the
nine
same.
times out of ten they will attack women more than men, and that's because they attack when they've entered their monthly cycle,
Right, right.
when the iron levels have reduced within the system.
Huh.
That's when the door opens for an attack to occur. When they're coming to do what they do, the nighttime abductions and attacks and things like that,
Mhm.
and they will not materialize. They will not come near the person if their iron levels are sustained, or they're wearing an iron amulet. Greys will stay the hell away from you with that.
Right.
Now, if we're dealing with individual things like a Semitic demon or a Middle Eastern jinn or the Irish fairy, for instance, or a series of little grey aliens from Alpha Centauri,
Yeah.
what the hell do they have all in
What
common
is
with
it about the
iron
iron? Yeah.
unless we're looking at the same source?
Mhm.
Mhm. Yeah.
And
Oh,
that's an important thing to consider. Are we looking at something that's coming through in the same source but using different masks?
So
wow.
the source being the iron, or the source being something else. I'm
No,
deciphering
the
here.
the source of where they come from,
Okay, got it.
is what I'm referring to. Are we
Okay.
looking at something that's slipping through from the same source?
Okay.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, I knew
Wow.
about iron a long time ago because of my path, but
Hmm.
I mean,
Hmm.
as a
Hmm.
witch, you
Yeah.
use iron all the time
Hmm.
for
Yeah.
Hmm.
protection.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
If I could get my
Wow.
hands on some railroad spikes, they'd be planted all over my property.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you are in the southern states. I'm sure there's some around there somewhere.
And I live right beside the railroad.
Yeah.
So,
See.
well,
Yeah.
there's
Well,
iron right there. There we go.
right. Right. Right.
Good.
Right. So what's a few missing spikes of the train?
Exactly.
You know, that wasn't me.
How did that rail crash happen in
Right.
Tennessee?
Right. Right. Yeah. Right. And why does this lady have these spikes all the way around her
Oops.
house? Yeah. Yeah. Even then, I don't think that they would understand. They probably would put two and two together. But I mean, but yeah.
Oh well. Okay, fine. I won't. Then.
Yeah. So, we're getting 7 more minutes, but I have one last question for you, Barry, and then I'll let Kelly ask you one more real quick.
Oh
Sure.
Lord, now I got to think.
Yeah. See. So, what was your best moment on being on GHI?
Oh, you
My
took my
best
question.
moment. There were several. There were several different ones. One in particular that was on camera, and I don't know if it was used because I never got to see the show myself. We went to the Mayan underworld, Xibalba, and we had to swim through the mouth of the cave with our equipment, and into this cave complex that stretched. I think it was 3 or 5 miles into the mountainside. Now, generally, what do they call them? My goodness, tourists. That's it.
Okay.
Those
Generally-
things.
Yeah, we have
generally
those.
We
tourists,
have those. Yeah, we have those here.
they can get to a certain point in the cave system. It's about a mile in.
Uh-huh.
And as we were working there on the show, we began to hear this. It sounded like voice within the cave system further in. And I paid more and more attention to this. And we then began to follow it. And our cave guide that was with us, who was from the country and well established there, he said, "Don't go after these voices, please don't. Our grandfathers have talked about these, and they will kill you."
Mhm.
And I said, "Well,
Self.
we're going to go." And in we went, and we walked one hell of a distance within the cave system. And as we get closer and closer, this was becoming more and more defined, but in a language that we couldn't understand.
Oh wow.
Wow.
And it got to a certain point that whatever this thing was, it was, there was this turn in the cave on the other side, which was about 50 feet away. It was behind that corner. Whatever this thing was. And it seemed to understand our language,
Mhm.
but we couldn't understand it. But in between us and it, the cave floor dropped off and just went into
wow.
this darkness. So
Oh.
we had this void to try and cross.
And there
to
was
meet
no path to
whatever
throw
this
rocks
thing
on, so
was.
you could walk across.
No, that was it. And I turned around and I looked at the cast that was with me, and I looked at the TV crew that were behind me as well. And I had to weigh up the situation and look at the depth of the water, because I was nearly drowned before in Transylvania by a thing there. And I said I had to be very cognizant of this. This could be a trap.
Mhm.
And that's whenever we stopped. We said, "That's it. We're done.
Well,
We're not going any further."
that just totally points to an elemental.
Well,
Yeah.
the thing
Points
is,
to an elemental.
it was remarkable that when we made the decision to stop and not venture any further, it stopped communicating.
Oh wow.
There was nothing else after that.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that goes back to your intuition again.
Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. Uh-huh.
Yep. It's like, nope, not doing it. Done.
No.
Out.
Yeah.
Color me gone. Yeah. Well,
Okay.
we don't
Kelly.
have time for my question now because
Yeah,
it's like
make it a
almost
quick
an
one.
hour.
Yeah, I know.
Who on this earth would
Yeah.
you go investigate with? Hands down, no questions asked. They call, you're out the door.
Jacques Vallée.
Oh,
Nice.
nice.
Yeah, scientist Jacques Vallée. And second to that would probably be, if he was still alive, John Keel.
Oh yeah, yeah. Okay. Wow.
And
Right.
that would be it.
Wow.
Wow.
Well, yeah. So everybody who's tuned in, this has been a fantastic show. I love picking your brain, Barry.
I just
because-
like listening. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
the
I mean,
knowledge
you-
is
yeah,
just amazing.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And
so,
I
yeah,
have it written down here to go pick up some of your books because I'm very
Yes.
interested in your
Yes.
theories.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
and you can find all
Right
your
now
books
I'm reading
on
young.
Amazon, correct?
That's right. Yeah. The latest one, the Deceptions of Gods and Men. It really is an intense book, and it's available in hardback, softback, ebook, and also in audiobook.
Nice audiobook. That's cool. I'm gonna need to get that. All right,
Audiobook's
Barry. So, yeah. So we want to thank you, Barry, again. This has been a great time. And
Thank you very
And
much.
my electrician is here, so I have
yeah,
to run.
all right. See how
Seriously.
that's great timing.
That was
okay.
great.
All right. Bye,
All right.
Kelly.
Thank you, Barry.
You're very welcome, Kelly. Thank you.
Matters for you, so don't knock that out. Keep it to a minimum.
All right.
I understand.
Thank you. Thank
Bye,
you.
guys.
Bye. So yeah, Barry, I want to thank you again. So yeah, this has been fun, and good luck with your documentary. And
Thank you.
hopefully we will be able to see it soon. Within
Fingers
the next
crossed.
year or two. And
Mhm.
yeah, everybody, I want to thank you again. This is the Cemetery Files podcast, and you can find us all on YouTube and all Facebook and all the audio platforms you can find us on. That's where we'll be at. So again, everybody watching, tuning in, we want to thank you.